You betrayed this family. This house is no longer yours.
The pregnancy test sat on my kitchen counter like a loaded tool, and my wife Vanessa was pointing it straight at my head with a smile that could freeze the sun. "Congratulations, Nick," she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "You're going to be a daddy again." I stared at the pink plus sign, then at my wife of 15 years, then back at the test. The math didn't add up, and I'd always been good with numbers. That's what happens when you're an IT manager. You notice patterns, inconsistencies, glitches in the system. "That's wonderful news, honey," I said, keeping my voice level. "When did this happen?" Vanessa's smile widened. She was beautiful. I'd give her that. 36 years old with the kind of magnetic presence that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Too bad most of them got burned. "Oh, you know how these things happen," she said, waving her manicured hand dismissively. "Does it matter?" It mattered plenty, considering we hadn't been intimate in over 6 months. But I didn't say that. Instead, I nodded and went back to prepping vegetables for our Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, preparing to carve up a turkey while my marriage was getting butchered right in front of me. "Is Alex coming tomorrow?" Vanessa asked, suddenly very interested in cleaning the already spotless granite countertop. Alex, my younger brother, the golden boy of the Ellison family. Owner of 3 successful gyms, perpetually tanned and blessed with the kind of easy charm that made people forget he was actually kind of an idiot. He'd been acting strange lately, avoiding eye contact, cutting conversations short, showing up to family gatherings looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Yeah, he'll be here," I said, along with Tessa and Greg and their kids. Vanessa's sister Tessa was the picture of suburban perfection. Pinterest-worthy home, organic everything. Kids who played violin and spoke French. Her husband Greg was a real estate agent with the kind of slick smile that made me want to count my fingers after shaking his hand. "Great," Vanessa said, but her tone suggested it was anything but great. "Should be fun." Fun. Right. About as fun as a root canal performed by a drunk dentist. My phone buzzed with a text from my 13-year-old daughter, Jamie. "Dad, Mom's being weird again. She's been on the phone with Aunt Tessa for like an hour whispering about something." Jamie was sharp as a tack and twice as cutting when she wanted to be. She'd inherited my sarcasm and her mother's beauty, a combination that was going to cause me plenty of sleepless nights in a few years. "Everything okay?" I asked Vanessa as she finally hung up her phone. "Just girl talk," she said. "You wouldn't understand." I understood plenty. I understood that my wife had been coming home late from work 3 nights a week for the past 2 months. I understood that she'd suddenly developed an interest in yoga classes that seemed to require overnight retreats. I understood that she'd been texting someone named G at all hours, messages that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in years. But what I really understood was that tomorrow's Thanksgiving dinner was going to be a disaster, and I was either going to be the turkey or the one wielding the carving knife. "Nick," Vanessa said, her voice taking on that particular tone she used when she wanted something, "I need you to be on your best behavior tomorrow." When am I not on my best behavior? You know what I mean? No sarcastic comments, no weird jokes, just be normal. Normal. Coming from a woman who was apparently carrying someone else's child and asking me to play along. The audacity was almost admirable. "I'll be a perfect gentleman," I promised. She studied my face, looking for signs of rebellion, but I kept my expression neutral. 15 years of marriage had taught me a few things about hiding my thoughts. My 10-year-old daughter Lily bounced into the kitchen, her blonde pigtails swinging. "Daddy, can we make the stuffing with the cranberries like last year?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said, ruffling her hair. "Want to help me prep the ingredients?" Lily was my shadow, always eager to help with whatever project I was working on. She had her mother's looks, but my temperament, steady, observant, loyal to a fault. As we worked together, measuring and chopping, I caught Vanessa watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Guilt? Regret? Or maybe just annoyance that her big revelation hadn't gone according to plan. "Mommy, are you sick?" Lily asked suddenly. "You look funny." "I'm fine, baby," Vanessa said, but her voice was strained. "Just tired from work. Work." Vanessa was the HR director at a mid-sized marketing firm, a job that required her to be charming and manipulative in equal measure. She was very good at it. "Maybe you should rest," I suggested. "I can handle the prep work." I think I will, she said, already heading toward the stairs. Don't wait up. It was barely 7 o'clock, but I wasn't surprised. Vanessa had been going to bed early a lot lately, usually with her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. After the girls went to bed, I sat in my home office staring at the pregnancy test. The smart thing would be to confront her directly, demand answers, maybe even call a lawyer. But I'd learned something important in my years as an IT manager. When you suspect someone is lying to you, the best strategy is to let them keep talking. Eventually, they'll give you enough rope to hang them with. I opened my laptop and started doing what I did best, gathering information. Vanessa wasn't particularly tech-savvy, which meant she'd left a digital trail wider than the Grand Canyon. Shared cloud accounts, synchronized calendars, location data she'd forgotten to turn off. The picture that emerged wasn't pretty. Hotel receipts on nights she claimed to be at yoga. Text messages with someone named Greg discussing our little secret. Calendar appointments labeled workout that coincided perfectly with times when Greg's own calendar showed private showings. Greg, my brother-in-law, the father of my nieces and nephews, the man who'd stood up at our wedding and toasted our eternal happiness. I leaned back in my chair and laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting indeed. Thanksgiving morning arrived with the kind of gray, bitter cold that made you want to crawl back under the covers and pretend the world didn't exist. Unfortunately, I had a turkey to cook and a family to host, not to mention a wife whose pregnancy announcement was about to become the most explosive dinner conversation since the Hindenburg. I was up at 6, prepping the bird and trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to play this. The old Nick would have confronted Vanessa privately, maybe suggested counseling, definitely tried to save the marriage for the kids' sake. But the old Nick was apparently a chump who'd been getting played for months. The new Nick was going to have some fun. "You're up early," Vanessa said, appearing in the kitchen wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than most people's car payments. She looked pale and tired, which I supposed was what happened when you were carrying your brother-in-law's baby. "Big day," I said cheerfully. "Family dinner, new baby announcement, all that excitement." She winced. "About yesterday." "What about it? I think it's wonderful news. Life-changing, really." "Nick, have you told Alex yet?" I asked, not looking up from the turkey I was seasoning. "I bet he'll be thrilled to hear he's going to be an uncle again." Vanessa's face went white. "Why would you mention Alex?" "Just making conversation. He's been acting strange lately, don't you think? Nervous, guilty, almost." "I haven't noticed anything." Maybe it's just me. You know how observant I can be." She stared at me for a long moment, trying to figure out if I was playing dumb or actually knew something. I kept my expression innocent and continued working on the turkey. "I'm going to shower," she said finally. "Good idea. Big day ahead." After she left, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the screenshots I'd taken of her text messages. My personal favorite was from 3 days ago. "Gee, can't wait for our next workout. You really know how to make me sweat." Classy stuff. Jamie wandered into the kitchen around 8, already dressed and looking like she was ready for battle. "Dad, what's Mom freaking out about? What makes you think she's freaking out?" "She's been pacing around her room for an hour, and she dropped her phone in the toilet." I tried not to smile. Accidents happen. "She also called Aunt Tessa and Uncle Greg like 5 times, but they're not answering." Interesting. Maybe Greg was having second thoughts about his little Thanksgiving surprise. "Well, they'll be here soon enough," I said. "Want to help me with the side dishes?" By 10 o'clock, the house was filled with the smell of roasting turkey and the sound of Vanessa's increasingly frantic phone calls. She'd moved on from Tessa and Greg to her work friend Carla, speaking in hushed, urgent tones that stopped whenever I walked into the room. "Everything okay?" I asked after catching the tail end of a conversation that involved the words disaster and what if he knows. "Fine," she snapped. "Just coordinating arrival times." "Coordinating?" I nodded sagely. That's one word for it. The first guests arrived at noon, my brother Alex and his girlfriend Monica. Alex looked like he was walking to his own execution, which, in a way, he was. "Hey, Nick," he said, giving me a hug that felt more like a goodbye. "How's it going?" "Never better." "Vanessa has some exciting news to share later." Alex's face went gray. "News? You'll love it. Really life-changing stuff." Monica, bless her heart, was oblivious to the undercurrents. "I brought wine," she announced, "and that spinach dip everyone loves." Perfect, I said. We're going to need all the alcohol we can get. Tessa and Greg arrived 20 minutes later with their 3 kids in tow. Greg looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, while Tessa had that brittle smile she wore when she was trying to hold everything together. "Nick," Tessa said, giving me an air kiss that smelled of desperation and too much perfume. "Everything looks wonderful." "Thanks. We're expecting quite a show today." Greg shook my hand with the enthusiasm of a man greeting his executioner. "Good to see you, Nick." "Oh, it's going to be very good," I assured him. The kids, Jamie, Lily, and Tessa's 3, disappeared upstairs to avoid the adults, which was probably the smartest thing anyone had done all day. That left the 7 grown-ups to navigate the minefield of polite conversation while the turkey finished cooking. "So," Monica said, settling onto the couch with a glass of wine, "what's this exciting news Vanessa mentioned?" Vanessa shot me a look that could have melted steel. "Maybe we should wait until after dinner." "Oh, I don't think we should wait," I said. It's the kind of news that gets better with anticipation. Alex was sweating now, despite the November chill. Greg kept checking his phone like he was expecting a reprieve from the governor. Tessa was drinking wine like it was water. "Well," Vanessa said, her voice artificially bright, "Nick and I are going to have another baby." The room went silent except for the sound of Monica's wine glass hitting the coffee table. "That's wonderful," Tessa said finally. "Congratulations." "Thank you," Vanessa said. "We're very excited." "How exciting," I agreed, especially considering the timing. "Timing?" Alex's voice cracked like a teenager's. "Well, you know how these things work, Alex. Or maybe you don't, considering your situation." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What situation?" Monica asked. "Oh, Alex didn't tell you? He had a vasectomy 5 years ago. Very thorough job, according to his doctor. Practically irreversible. You could have heard a pin drop. Then you could have heard several pins drop, followed by a few bowling balls and maybe a small aircraft." Vanessa's face went through several interesting color changes before settling on a shade that reminded me of old parchment. "Nick," she said carefully, "maybe we should discuss this privately." "Why?" "It's family. We shouldn't have secrets from family." Greg cleared his throat. "Maybe I should check on the kids." "Sit down, Greg," I said pleasantly. "I think you'll want to hear this." "Hear what?" Tessa asked, though her voice suggested she really didn't want to know. "Well, since Alex can't be the father, I've been wondering who could be. It's quite the mystery." Vanessa stood up abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this." "Actually, you do. It's your house too, at least for now." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just thinking out loud about the future. You know, custody arrangements, property division, that sort of thing." The silence stretched until Monica, bless her innocent heart, asked the question everyone was thinking. "So if Alex isn't the father, who is?" I looked around the room at the guilty faces, the sweating brows, the barely contained panic. "That," I said, "is an excellent question. Greg, you look like you might have some thoughts on the subject." Greg's face went through more color changes than a mood ring in a microwave. Tessa's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor, sending Pinot Grigio splashing across her designer boots. "I think," Greg said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I should go." "Sit down," I repeated, and this time there was no pleasantness in my voice. "We're just getting to the good part." Vanessa was backing toward the door like a cornered animal. "Nick, you're being ridiculous. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" "Because I think the embarrassing part hasn't even started yet." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd labeled Evidence. Months of screenshots, saved voicemails, and documented lies, all organized with the same attention to detail I brought to debugging code. "Let's see," I said, scrolling through the files. "Where should we start? The hotel receipts, the text messages, or maybe the GPS data showing Greg's car parked at the Marriott downtown every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 months?" Tessa made a sound like air escaping from a punctured tire. "Greg?" "I can explain," Greg said, which was exactly what guilty people always said when they couldn't explain anything. "Please do," I encouraged. "I'm sure we'd all love to hear your explanation for why you've been screwing my wife while I've been working 60-hour weeks to pay for her yoga retreats." "Nick!" Vanessa's voice was sharp with panic. "That's enough!" "Oh, we're nowhere near enough. Alex, you want to chime in here? You've been awfully quiet." My brother looked like he wanted to disappear into the couch cushions. Nick, I didn't know. Didn't know what? That your sister-in-law was having an affair with her brother-in-law? Or didn't know she was going to try to pin her pregnancy on you? Monica set down her wine glass with shaking hands. I think I should leave. No, stay, I said. You're practically family, and family should stick together during times like these. Right, Vanessa? My wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, was pressed against the wall now, her perfectly applied makeup starting to run. You don't understand. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Explain how you ended up pregnant with Greg's baby while married to me. It just happened, she said weakly. Things like this don't just happen. They're planned, orchestrated, like that little performance yesterday with the pregnancy test. Were you hoping I'd be so excited about becoming a father again that I wouldn't do the math? Tessa suddenly stood up, swaying slightly from the wine and shock. Greg, tell me this isn't true. Greg opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. Tessa, honey, don't you honey me? Tessa's voice rose to a near shriek. Are you having an affair with my sister? The silence stretched until Jamie's voice drifted down from upstairs. Dad? Everything okay down there? Everything's fine, sweetheart, I called back. Just having a family discussion? It didn't sound fine, came Lily's concerned voice. Stay upstairs, girls, Vanessa shouted, her composure finally cracking completely. Why? I asked mildly. Afraid they'll hear what kind of mother they have? That did it. Vanessa came at me with her nails extended like claws, screaming something about how I'd ruined everything. I caught her wrists easily. All those years of carrying computer equipment had their advantages. Let go of me, she snarled. Gladly, I said, releasing her so abruptly she stumbled backward into Greg, who caught her automatically before realizing how that looked to his wife. Tessa's laugh was sharp and bitter. Oh, that's perfect, just perfect. Even now you're reaching for each other. Tessa, it's not, Greg started. Shut up! Tessa turned to Vanessa with 15 years of sisterly resentment blazing in her eyes. You couldn't stand it, could you? You couldn't stand that I had something you wanted. I never wanted Greg, Vanessa shot back. Trust me, he was hardly worth the effort. Greg's face flushed red. Hey, wait a minute. Oh, please, Vanessa continued, her filter completely gone now. You think you're some kind of stud, but you're just a middle-aged real estate agent with a receding hairline and performance issues? The room fell silent except for the sound of Greg's ego deflating. Performance issues? Tessa asked, her voice dangerously quiet. I shouldn't have said that, Vanessa mumbled. No, please continue, I encouraged. This is fascinating. Tell us more about Greg's performance issues. Nick, stop, Alex said weakly. Why should I stop? This is the most honest conversation this family has had in years. Monica stood up abruptly. I really think I should go. Actually, I said, that's probably a good idea. This is about to get ugly and you seem like a nice person. She grabbed her purse and practically ran for the door. I didn't blame her. That left 6 of us in a circle of mutual destruction, with the smell of burning turkey beginning to drift in from the kitchen. The turkey, Vanessa gasped. Let it burn, I said. Seems appropriate, don't you think? Tessa was staring at her husband with the kind of cold fury that preceded either violence or divorce papers. How long? Tessa, how long have you been sleeping with my sister? Greg looked around the room like he was hoping for a rescue that wasn't coming. 6 months, maybe 7. Maybe 7, Tessa repeated. You're not even sure. It doesn't matter, Vanessa said. It's over now anyway. Is it? I asked. Because according to your text messages, you two were planning quite a future together. Something about Greg leaving Tessa and you leaving me, then splitting the assets from both divorces? Greg's face went white. You read her texts? Shared cloud account, I explained. Vanessa never was very good with technology. Did you know she also saved voicemails? Including that lovely one where you two discussed how to maximize alimony payments. You bastard, Vanessa hissed. Those were private. Nothing's private when you were married, sweetheart. That's what, for better or worse, means. This is worse, Alex said quietly. This is definitely worse. The smoke alarm chose that moment to start shrieking, adding a perfect soundtrack to the destruction of 2 marriages and 1 family. I'll get it, I said, heading for the kitchen. The turkey was indeed burned beyond recognition, a charred monument to family dysfunction. When I returned to the living room, Greg was gone and Tessa was crying into her hands, while Vanessa stood frozen in the middle of the room like a deer in headlights. "Where'd Greg go?" I asked. "He left," Alex said. "Just grabbed his keys and ran." "Smart man. Tessa, you okay?" She looked up at me with mascara-streaked cheeks. "How long have you known?" "A few months. I was waiting for the right moment to bring it up." "And you thought Thanksgiving dinner was the right moment?" I considered this. In retrospect, maybe Christmas would have been better, more festive. Despite everything, Tessa almost smiled. "You're taking this remarkably well." "Am I? Because I feel like I'm about to burn the whole world down." Vanessa finally found her voice. "What happens now?" I looked at my wife, the mother of my children, the woman I'd loved for 15 years, the person who'd just blown up our entire life for a mediocre real estate agent with performance issues. "Now," I said, "we see how well you can swim when the sharks smell blood in the water." The next few days passed in a blur of lawyers, locksmith visits, and the kind of small-town gossip that spread faster than wildfire in a drought. Vanessa had moved in with her friend Carla temporarily, while Greg was reportedly sleeping on his office couch after Tessa changed the locks and threw his belongings onto the front lawn. I was in my kitchen drinking coffee and scrolling through the increasingly creative rumors circulating on social media when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my lawyer's number. "Nick, we have a problem," David Martinez said without preamble. Vanessa's attorney filed for emergency custody of the girls. I set down my coffee cup carefully, the way you handle unstable explosives. "On what grounds?" "Emotional instability, hostile home environment, potential for violence, the usual scorched earth tactics." "Violence?" "I never touched her." "I know that, and you know that, but her lawyer is painting the Thanksgiving incident as psychological misuse. They're claiming you deliberately humiliated her in front of family members." "I exposed her affair. There's a difference." "Not in family court, there isn't. We need to be prepared for anything." After hanging up, I sat in my empty house and tried to figure out how everything had gone sideways so quickly. The girls were at school, blissfully unaware that their parents were about to engage in legal warfare that would make the 100 Years' War look like a minor disagreement. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. G. Greg." The man with performance issues wanted to chat. I texted back, "Nothing to discuss. Please, coffee, neutral location?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, "Starbucks on Main, 1 hour." Greg was already there when I arrived, hunched over a venti something or other and looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled and his expensive suit was wrinkled. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down across from him. "This should be interesting. Look, Nick, I know you hate me. Hate's a strong word. I'd say I'm more disappointed. I expected better from my brother-in-law. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? You and Vanessa were going to run away together and leave me and Tessa to pick up the pieces?" Greg winced. "It wasn't that calculated." "Really? Because I've seen the text messages about splitting divorce settlements. That sounds pretty calculated to me." "Vanessa got carried away. She started talking about leaving you, and I got caught up in the fantasy." "Fantasy. That's one way to put it." Greg leaned forward, his eyes desperate. "I need you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. It was just, God, this sounds awful, but it was just love at first. Just love with my wife. How romantic." "I know how it sounds, but Vanessa, she's very persuasive when she wants something." I had to give him that. Vanessa could sell ice to Eskimos and make them thank her for the privilege. "So, what do you want from me, Greg? Forgiveness? Absolution? A recommendation letter for your next affair? I want to make this right." "You can't make this right. You slept with my wife and got her pregnant. There's no making that right." "I could testify in the custody hearing. Tell them it was all my fault, that you never did anything wrong." I studied his face, looking for the angle. There was always an angle with Greg. "What's the catch?" "No catch. I don't want the kids to suffer because of what I did." "The kids are going to suffer no matter what happens. That's what adultery does. It's not just the spouse who gets hurt." Greg's phone buzzed and he glanced at it nervously. "Tessa's lawyer wants to meet tomorrow. She's going for everything, the house, the business, full custody of our kids." Can't say I blame her. She's talking about moving back to her mother's in California, taking the kids with her. Again, can't blame her. I'll lose everything. Yeah, that tends to happen when you blow up your life for an affair. Greg's composure finally cracked. I know I screwed up, okay? I know I'm the villain here, but I'm trying to do the right thing now. The right thing would have been keeping your pants on 6 months ago. I can't change that, but I can try to minimize the damage going forward. I sipped my coffee and watched Greg squirm. There was something almost satisfying about seeing him reduced to this. The smooth-talking salesman brought low by his own stupidity. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. You're going to stay away from Vanessa. Completely. No contact except through lawyers regarding the baby. Done. You're going to write a statement for my lawyer explaining that I never threatened you or anyone else, that the Thanksgiving confrontation was justified given the circumstances. Okay. And you're going to figure out how to be a father to that baby without destroying what's left of both our families. Greg nodded eagerly. Yes, absolutely, whatever you need. I don't need anything from you, Greg. This isn't about me helping you. This is about you trying to salvage some microscopic shred of human decency from this disaster. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I deserve that. You deserve a lot worse than that. My phone rang, Jamie calling from school. Dad, Mom's here. She's trying to pick us up early. Don't go with her. Tell the office you're supposed to stay until normal dismissal time. She's arguing with the secretary. She looks really upset. I'll be right there. I hung up and stood to leave. Greg grabbed my arm. Nick, wait, there's something else you should know. What now? Vanessa's been talking to a reporter. Someone from that gossip blog that covers local drama. She's planning to tell her side of the story. Her side of the story? I stared at him. She wants to paint you as controlling and emotionally manipulative, make herself look like the victim. Of course she does. I thought you should know. I pulled my arm free and headed for the door. Thanks for the warning. Now stay away from my family. The drive to the school took 10 minutes, during which I called David Martinez and filled him in on Vanessa's latest strategy. By the time I arrived, there was already a small crowd gathered outside the main office. Vanessa, the principal, a secretary, and what looked like a reporter with a camera. This was about to get very interesting. The scene outside Jefferson Elementary looked like something from a reality TV show gone wrong. Vanessa was gesticulating wildly at Principal Henderson, while a young woman with a press badge held up a phone, clearly recording everything. My daughter stood behind the secretary, Jamie looking annoyed and Lily looking scared. There's Daddy, Lily called out when she saw me, breaking free from the group and running toward my car. Hey, sweetheart, I said, catching her in a hug. Everything okay? Mommy's being loud, Lily whispered. She said she was taking us to live with Aunt Carla. Over Lily's head, I saw Vanessa notice my arrival. Her face shifted from frantic to calculating in the span of a heartbeat. Nick, she called out, her voice carrying that artificial sweetness she used when she wanted an audience to think she was reasonable. Perfect timing. I was just explaining to Mr. Henderson that the girls should come stay with me for a while. Were you? I walked over with Lily's hand in mine, Jamie falling into step beside us. And what did Mr. Henderson say? Principal Henderson, a patient man who dealt with his share of family drama, cleared his throat. I explained to Mrs. Ellison that without a court order, we can't release the children to either parent without the other's consent. Very wise policy, I agreed. Jamie, Lily, why don't you go get your backpacks? Normal dismissal procedures. But Mom said, Lily started. Mom was mistaken, I said gently. Go ahead. As the girls headed back into the building, the reporter stepped forward. She looked young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of eager expression that suggested she thought she was about to break the story of the century. Mr. Ellison, I'm Rebecca Chen from the Valley Voice blog. I was hoping to get your comment on the allegations. No comment, I said firmly, but your wife has made some serious accusations about emotional misuse, and my soon-to-be ex-wife has made a lot of accusations lately. Most of them are as fictional as her marriage vows. Vanessa's face flushed red. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? You're the one who brought a reporter to our daughter's school, Vanessa. You're the one turning this into a public spectacle. I'm trying to protect my children from a hostile environment? By creating an even more hostile environment? Brilliant strategy. Rebecca Chen was frantically taking notes, her phone still recording. This was exactly the kind of small-town drama that got clicks and shares. Mr. Ellison, she pressed, Can you respond to the allegations that you deliberately humiliated your wife in front of family members? I looked at the reporter, then at Vanessa, then at the small crowd of parents and staff members who had gathered to watch the show. Sure, I said, I can respond to that. Vanessa's eyes widened. She'd expected me to refuse comment, to slink away and let her control the narrative. My wife was having an affair with her sister's husband, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the parking lot. She got pregnant by him and tried to pass the baby off as mine. When I exposed this at our family Thanksgiving dinner, she claimed I was being controlling. I'd call that consequences, not misuse, the crowd murmured. Rebecca Chen's eyes lit up. This was better than she'd hoped for. That's not, Vanessa started. Not what? Not true? Because I have text messages, hotel receipts, and GPS data that say otherwise. I also have a witness who can confirm the affair, the man she was sleeping with. You bastard, Vanessa hissed, her composure finally cracking completely. You vindictive, pathetic... Careful, I warned. You're being recorded. She spun around to glare at Rebecca Chen. Turn that off! It's a public place, ma'am. I have every right to record. This is harassment. This is journalism, Rebecca corrected. And you're the one who contacted me, remember? Principal Henderson stepped forward. I think we should all take a step back here. The children are fine, I said. They're inside, away from this circus their mother created. I created? Vanessa's voice rose to a near shriek. You're the one who destroyed our family! I destroyed our family by discovering your affair? That's an interesting interpretation of events. You could have handled it privately. You didn't have to humiliate me in front of everyone. Like you're humiliating yourself right now? The crowd was growing larger. Other parents, teachers, even some high school kids who'd heard the commotion. Everyone had their phones out now, recording what was rapidly becoming the most entertaining thing to happen in our quiet suburb in years. Mr. Ellison, Rebecca Chen said, what's your response to claims that you've been controlling and manipulative throughout the marriage? I almost laughed. Controlling? I worked 60-hour weeks while my wife pursued her hobbies and interests. I took care of the kids when she had her yoga retreats and girls' nights out. If that's controlling, then I'm guilty as charged. Those weren't hobbies, Vanessa snapped. I was trying to find myself. You found yourself, all right. You found yourself in bed with Greg Patterson. A gasp went through the crowd. Greg was well known in town. He'd sold houses to half these people. You're destroying innocent people, Vanessa accused. Greg destroyed himself when he started sleeping with his sister-in-law. I'm just reporting the news. What about your children? What about Jamie and Lily? How do you think this affects them? That hit home, and she knew it. I felt a flicker of doubt. Was I handling this wrong? Should I have taken the high road? Then I remembered the custody filing, the attempt to paint me as unstable and dangerous. The high road was a luxury I couldn't afford. My children, I said carefully, deserve to know the truth about why their family fell apart. They deserve to know it wasn't because their father was harmful or controlling, but because their mother chose to betray everyone who loved her. Vanessa's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married 15 years ago, vulnerable, uncertain, human. Then the moment passed. I'm calling my lawyer, she announced. Good idea. Maybe he can explain why ambushing your children's school with a reporter isn't great for your custody case. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, but before she could dial, a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. Tessa's silver Mercedes, with Tessa herself behind the wheel looking like the wrath of God. Oh, this should be good, I murmured. Tessa got out of her car and surveyed the scene. The crowd, the reporter, her sister standing in the middle of it all like the eye of a hurricane. Really, Vanessa? Tessa's voice carried clearly across the parking lot. A school? You brought this to a school? Tessa, I can explain. Explain what? How you're still trying to make yourself the victim. How you're dragging your children into your mess. Rebecca Chen perked up. This was getting better by the minute. Are you Tessa Patterson? She asked, approaching with her phone extended. I'd love to get your perspective on... My perspective, Tessa said coldly, is that my sister is a selfish, destructive person who ruins everything she touches. Is that what you wanted to hear? The crowd was riveted. This was better than cable TV. Tessa, please, Vanessa pleaded. We're family. Family doesn't sleep with family's husbands, Tessa shot back. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and destroy lives for fun. It wasn't for fun. I was unhappy. So get a divorce. Go to counseling. Don't screw my husband and get pregnant with his baby. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Rebecca Chen looked like she'd won the journalism lottery. That's enough, Principal Henderson said firmly. This needs to end now or I'm calling security. You're right, I said. This has gone far enough. I turned to Rebecca Chen. You have your story. My daughters don't need to see any more of this. Just a few more questions. No more questions. If you want a statement, contact my lawyer. I headed toward the school entrance, but Vanessa grabbed my arm. Nick, wait, please. Can we talk privately? I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman who'd shared my bed for 15 years, who'd given birth to my daughters, who'd been my partner through good times and bad. Now she was just a stranger wearing my wife's face. There's nothing left to say, Vanessa. There has to be something. Some way to fix this. You can't fix betrayal. You can only live with the consequences. I pulled free and went to collect my daughters, leaving Vanessa standing in the parking lot surrounded by cameras and curious strangers, finally getting the attention she'd always craved, just not the kind she'd wanted. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office reviewing the final divorce papers when David Martinez looked up from his computer with a frown. We have a problem, he said. Vanessa's filed a motion claiming you've been hiding assets. What assets? She knows exactly what we have. Apparently not. She's claiming you've been funneling money into offshore accounts and cryptocurrency investments. I laughed. I'm an IT manager, not a criminal mastermind. The most exotic investment I have is a 401k. I know that, but she's got documentation. Bank statements, transaction records, the works. Let me see. David turned his laptop around, and I found myself staring at financial records that looked disturbingly official. Account numbers I didn't recognize, transfers I'd never made, investment portfolios that would have made Warren Buffett jealous. This is all fake, I said immediately. Someone created these documents. Can you prove that? Give me 5 minutes. I pulled out my own laptop and started digging into the metadata of the files Vanessa had submitted. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Here, I said, pointing to the screen. These documents were all created last Tuesday between 2 and 4 p.m. The bank statements are dated going back 3 years, but they were all generated this week. That's good, and look at this. I opened another file. The account numbers don't match any real bank's formatting. Whoever made these didn't do their homework. David leaned back in his chair. So, Vanessa's trying to frame you for financial fraud? Looks like it. The question is, who helped her create these documents? My phone buzzed with a text from Jamie. Dad, Uncle Alex is here. He wants to talk to you. I showed David the message. Speak of the devil. Your brother? My brother, who's been acting guilty about something for months. I drove home to find Alex sitting on my front porch, looking like he was waiting for his own execution. He'd lost weight since Thanksgiving, and his usual golden boy confidence had been replaced by something that looked like shame. Hey, Nick, he said as I got out of the car. Alex, what brings you by? We need to talk. About what? About what I did. I sat down on the porch steps beside him. I'm listening. Vanessa came to me last week. She said you were trying to hide money from her in the divorce, that you'd been planning this for months. And you believed her? I wanted to help. She's family and she seemed so desperate. Help how? Alex pulled out his phone and showed me a series of text messages. She asked me to create some financial documents that would prove you'd been hiding assets. I stared at the messages. You helped her forge bank statements. I didn't know they were fake. She said you'd admitted to hiding money but destroyed the evidence. She just needed me to recreate what had been lost. Alex, that's fraud. Serious fraud. I know that now. He looked miserable. Monica found out what I was doing and threatened to leave me if I didn't come clean. Smart woman. She said I was choosing Vanessa over my own brother, and she was right. I felt a familiar surge of anger, but it was tempered by something else. Pity. Alex had always been the golden boy, the one who coasted through life on charm and good looks. He'd never developed the skills to recognize manipulation when it was staring him in the face. Why? I asked. Why would you help her frame me? Because she said you were planning to leave her with nothing. That you were going to take the kids and disappear. And you believed that? She was very convincing. She showed me text messages that made it look like you were planning something terrible. More fake documents? Probably. I'm not good with technology like you are. I couldn't tell they were fake. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. Alex, do you understand what you've done? You've helped my wife commit fraud in a custody case. I could lose my kids because of this. I know, that's why I'm here. I want to make it right. How? I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. How Vanessa manipulated me, how I helped create the fake documents, all of it. That could get you in serious legal trouble. I don't care. I can't let you lose your kids because of my stupidity. I studied my brother's face. He looked genuinely remorseful, but then again, Alex had always been good at looking however he needed to look. There's something else, he said quietly. What now? Vanessa's planning something for the custody hearing tomorrow. Something big. Like what? I don't know exactly, but she's been meeting with someone. A private investigator, I think. She said she was going to prove you're an unfit father. Based on what? I don't know, but Nick, she's desperate, really desperate. I think she's capable of anything right now. That night, I sat in my kitchen going through every interaction I'd had with Vanessa since Thanksgiving, trying to figure out what she might use against me. The girls were upstairs doing homework, blissfully unaware that tomorrow would determine their future. My phone rang. David Martinez. Nick, we have a bigger problem. Vanessa's filed an emergency motion claiming you threatened her and the children. What? When? Today, apparently. She has a recording. A recording of what? You threatening to make sure she never sees the kids again? I never said that. I know, but she has audio. We'll hear it tomorrow at the hearing. After hanging up, I paced around the house trying to remember every conversation I'd had with Vanessa in the past few weeks. Most had been through lawyers or in public places. When had she had the opportunity to record me? Then it hit me. 3 days ago, she'd called about picking up some of her belongings. I'd been angry, frustrated, and yes, I'd said some things I probably shouldn't have. But I'd never threatened her or the kids. Had I? The next morning, the courthouse was packed. Word had gotten out about the case, partly thanks to Rebecca Chen's blog posts, which had gone viral, and the custody hearing had become the hottest ticket in town. Vanessa sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, looking like the picture of wounded motherhood in a conservative blue dress and minimal makeup. She'd lost weight, which made her look fragile and sympathetic. Your Honor, her lawyer began, my client has been the victim of a systematic campaign of emotional misuse and intimidation. She fears for her safety and the safety of her children. That's quite an accusation, Counselor, Judge Morrison said. I hope you have evidence to support it. We do, Your Honor. We have audio recordings of Mr. Ellison threatening my client, financial records showing he's been hiding marital assets, and testimony from witnesses who observed his violent and erratic behavior. I felt my stomach drop. This was worse than I'd expected. Let's hear the recording, Judge Morrison said. Vanessa's lawyer pressed play on a small device, and my voice filled the courtroom. You think you can destroy this family and walk away with everything? You're wrong. I'll make sure you never see those kids again. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. The words hung in the air like poison gas. I remembered the conversation now. Vanessa had called about getting her grandmother's jewelry, and I'd been furious about the custody filing. But hearing it played back, without context, it sounded like a threat. Your Honor, David Martinez stood up. That recording has been edited. We'd like to request the full, unedited version. Objection, Vanessa's lawyer said quickly. The recording speaks for itself. I'll allow it, Judge Morrison said. Let's hear the full context. What followed was 20 minutes of audio that told a very different story. The full recording showed Vanessa provoking me, trying to get me to say something incriminating, deliberately pushing my buttons until I snapped. My threat was clearly a reference to the custody case and public opinion, not physical harm. Your Honor, David said, as you can hear, my client was responding to deliberate provocation. Mrs. Ellison was clearly trying to elicit an angry response for the purpose of this recording. Judge Morrison looked displeased. Mrs. Ellison, did you make this recording without your husband's knowledge? I was afraid, Vanessa said in a small voice. I needed evidence of his behavior. Evidence you manufactured by provoking him? I didn't provoke anything. I was just trying to have a normal conversation about my belongings. The recording suggests otherwise. Vanessa's lawyer quickly moved on to the financial documents, presenting the fake bank statements and investment records that Alex had helped create. But David was ready for this too. Your Honor, we've had these documents analyzed by a forensic accountant. They're completely fabricated. In fact, we have testimony from the person who helped create them. Alex stood up in the gallery. Your Honor, I'm Alexander Ellison, the defendant's brother. I helped Mrs. Ellison create those documents, and I'm here to testify that they're fake. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Vanessa's face went white. You're willing to testify under oath? Judge Morrison asked Alex. Yes, Your Honor. I was manipulated into helping Mrs. Ellison frame my brother, and I want to make it right. What followed was 3 hours of testimony that systematically destroyed Vanessa's case. Alex explained how she'd manipulated him into creating the fake documents. I testified about discovering the affair and the circumstances of the Thanksgiving confrontation. Even Greg showed up to testify that I'd never threatened him or anyone else. By the time it was over, Vanessa looked like she'd been hit by a truck. Mrs. Ellison, Judge Morrison said sternly, you've wasted this court's time with fabricated evidence and manufactured drama. Not only am I denying your custody motion, I'm awarding primary custody to Mr. Ellison pending a full investigation into your conduct. Vanessa stood up shakily. Your Honor, please. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for possible prosecution for fraud and perjury. But your baby will be better served by having at least one honest parent. As the courtroom cleared, Vanessa approached me one last time. Nick, please, don't let it end like this. I looked at the woman who'd been my wife, my partner, my best friend for 15 years. The woman who just tried to destroy me in court using lies and manipulation. It ended the day you decided Greg Patterson was more important than our family, I said quietly. Everything since then has just been cleanup. She started to cry then. Real tears, not the calculated performance she'd put on for the judge, but it was too late for tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix this. I walked away, leaving her standing in the empty courtroom with nothing but her regrets and the ruins of the life she'd thrown away. 6 months later, I was in my kitchen making breakfast for Jamie and Lily when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a delivery truck. Dad, there's a package, Lily called out. I signed for the envelope and opened it to find divorce papers, final, official, and stamped by the court. After 18 months of legal warfare, it was finally over. What's that? Jamie asked, looking over my shoulder. Paperwork, I said. Just boring adult stuff. Is it about Mom? Yeah, sweetheart, it is. Are you sad? I thought about that for a moment. Was I sad, angry, relieved, all of the above? I'm ready to move forward, I said finally. We all are. Good, Jamie said, stealing a piece of bacon from the pan. Mom's drama was getting old anyway. I laughed despite myself. Jamie Elizabeth Ellison, you're too young to be that cynical. I learned from the best, she said with a grin that reminded me painfully of her mother. Later that day, I ran into Tessa at the grocery store. She looked good, healthier than she had in months, with the kind of peace that comes from making difficult but necessary decisions. Nick, she said, giving me a genuine smile. How are you holding up? Better than expected? You? Same. The kids and I are settling in well in California. Greg's Greg, but that's not my problem anymore. And Vanessa? She had the baby last month, a boy. She's living with Carla and working part-time at some retail place. How's she doing? About as well as you'd expect for someone who destroyed her entire life for a mediocre affair. We stood there for a moment, two survivors of the same disaster. Do you ever regret it? Tessa asked. The way it all came out? Which part? Exposing the affair or the public humiliation that followed? All of it? I considered the question. I regret that the kids had to see it. I regret that our family fell apart. But do I regret exposing the truth? No. They made their choices, and choices have consequences. Even if those consequences destroyed them, they destroyed themselves, Tessa. I just refused to go down with the ship. That evening, I sat on my back porch watching Jamie and Lily play in the yard. They were resilient. Kids always are. But I knew they'd carry scars from this experience for the rest of their lives. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say thank you for not pressing charges, for letting me make things right. Alex, I typed back. Family is family, even when they're idiots. I owe you. You don't owe me anything. Just be better. I'm trying. As the sun set over my quiet suburban street, I reflected on the past year and a half. I'd lost a wife, a brother-in-law, and the comfortable illusion of a happy marriage. But I'd gained something too, the knowledge that I could survive betrayal, that I could fight for what mattered, and that sometimes the truth was worth the pain it caused. Vanessa had wanted to rewrite history, to make herself the victim and me the villain. But history is written by those who survive to tell the tale, and I was still standing. The girls came running over as the streetlights began to flicker on. "Dad, can we have hot chocolate?" Lily asked. "Can we watch a movie?" Jamie added. "Sure," I said, standing up and brushing off my jeans. "What do you want to watch?" "Something funny," they said in unison. "Something funny it is." As we headed inside, I took one last look at the house across the street where Greg used to live. It was empty now, with a "for sale" sign in the yard that had been there for months. Sometimes the consequences of our choices follow us longer than we expect. But that was his problem now, not mine. I closed the door behind us and got on with the business of living.